On today's program, we travel to Oklahoma City to get a tour of a new water conservation demonstration garden at Bluff Creek Park near Lake Hefner with Extension Associate Joshua Campbell. We visit Santa Fe School where they are incorporating gardening into their 6th grade curriculum. Barbara Brown prepares barley, peas, and corn, and Extension Specialist Shelly Mitchell presses flowers. Oklahoma Gardening is a production of the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service as part of the land grant mission of the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Oklahoma State University, dedicated to improving the quality of life of the citizens of Oklahoma through research-based information. Underwriting assistance is provided by TLC, Oklahoma's leading garden center, Southwood Landscape and Garden Center, Tulsa's source for great gardens, southwoodgardencenter.com. and the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry, helping to keep Oklahoma green and growing.
We're here in Bluff Creek Park, just north of Lake Hefner in Oklahoma City. And joining me is Joshua Campbell, who is an Extension Associate with the Horticulture and Landscape Architecture Department. And Joshua, we're at a new water conservation garden that you just installed. Can you tell us a little bit about the partnership and how this came to be?
Sure, Casey. Well, thank you for coming out to Bluff Creek Park today. This partnership has been going on for about 3 years. And it started out as a partnership between the City of Oklahoma City Water Utilities Department and Oklahoma State University's Cooperative Extension Program. And what we've been doing is trying to educate Oklahoma residents about the importance of water conservation and water efficiency in the landscape. And so, among many things, the development of these water conservation gardens has been one of the things that we've done in partnership with the City of Oklahoma City. And this park here, Bluff Creek Park specifically, was a partnership between the Parks and Recreation Department, City of Oklahoma City Water Utilities Department, the Oklahoma State University Department of Horticulture and Landscape Architecture, and then also the Cooperative Extension Service as a whole.
So Joshua, this is a great example for citizens to come and see plants that are really low maintenance and also drought tolerant. Can you explain a little bit about when this was installed?
Sure. So the garden here was installed last fall, actually in November, and the idea was that we develop a perennial landscape that showcases plant material that's either native or well adapted to the conditions here in Oklahoma. So we irrigated upon installation, but we've been lucky with the spring rains that we've gotten. We actually haven't had to irrigate since then.
Yeah, it's a little rainy today, this spring day, but let's talk about some of the plants that you've selected here. So behind us we have a lot of color, actually, some flowers, and a lot of times people think they're succulents and cactus. And so what are some of the plants you've chosen? It looks like we've got some yarrow behind us.
Yeah, one of the things I like to tell people about drought tolerant plant selection, specifically here in Oklahoma, is that it's not what you would typically think, that xeric type landscape that you would typically think of. We benefit from much higher average rainfall totals, and so we're able to have plant selections that are a little bit more colorful and a little bit more different than things you might think of when you think of a drought tolerant landscape. So yeah, we have the moonshine yarrow, which is a beautiful yellow, and that's an Oklahoma native. We've got some of the purple
catmint back
there.
And then you've also mixed in some grasses. You've got some little blue stem out here and some Mexican feathergrass. And not all of these are specifically native, correct? But they're all really great drought tolerant plants.
Absolutely. What we tried to do is we've developed a guidebook called Oklahoma Drought Tolerant Plant Selections for Oklahoma, and you can find that through the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension website. And what we tried to do is use plant material that's in that guidebook. And so it's not all native, a lot of natives, but not all native. If it's not native, it's well adapted to the climate conditions here in Oklahoma. It's a proven hardy plant for the conditions that it would face here in Oklahoma.
And additionally, some of these plants are also great pollinator plants as well.
Absolutely, yes, very pollinator friendly. And what we try to do is also find plants that are going to bloom at different times throughout the year so that there's color and interest throughout the year, and ultimately so that this kind of takes care of itself and is an illustration of what a low maintenance, drought tolerant landscape could look like.
And most of these plants are labeled also, so people can kind of easily identify what those plants will look like in the landscape. We have an event coming up actually in June.
Yeah.
Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so on June 17th, you'll be here back at Bluff Creek Park with us, and we'll be having a picnic hopefully, and just kind of walking through the garden, enjoying, hopefully in
sunnier
June,
day maybe.
Yeah, on a sunnier day that things will be blooming, and we'll have a little bit more color out here, but we'll have a picnic and just kind of talk about the garden space, talk about the specific plants that are used here, and then hopefully pick your brain a little bit about plants, and I think it should be a fun time. Excellent.
Well, I hope the visitors can join us that day and come out and see the Bluff Creek Park for yourself. We are here today at Santa Fe South Public Charter School at their school farm, and joining me today is Chris Brewster, and you're the superintendent here. Thank you for joining us. This is a beautiful farm that you guys have, and it's really exciting that every sixth grader has the opportunity to come out here and learn. Can you kind of tell me how this became?
Sure. We serve kids who are predominantly from an inner city environment, and a lot of kids who live in the urban areas don't have a chance to know where their food comes from, or have the joy of planting or digging and playing in the dirt. So for some time we've wanted to give them that experience, and we found a local landowner, Ralph Tyler of Tyler Media, who said that we could use this plot next to his radio station here. And so over the past couple of years we've been developing and amending the soil, and we've got a great farm manager who's been not only doing that but teaching kids as he does that. And our sixth grade class this year has really taken to the farm. We started a sixth grade center, and it's become an integral part of their learning throughout the year. So that's sort of what we're about this year.
And what's neat is we had some students out here, and a lesson about bees turned into a math lesson with you earlier. You were trying to count how many bees were in that hive. There's a lot of other learning that goes on, not just about the farm.
Well, obviously we're not really trying to feed all these kids with this food, right? It's the experience of growing, the understanding of what's taking place in the soil, the importance of food and food safety. And a lot of those lessons are taught not through a specified curriculum, but through those teachable moments, that experiential learning that takes place. And it happens, our teachers are so good. They seize every opportunity that they can. And the garden is just rich and full of those chances for math and science and social interaction. So it's become a really fertile environment for something like that to take place.
And you're actually taking some of this food and trying to incorporate it into the cafeteria as well?
Right, we've done this for a year or two. In fact, our cantaloupes and watermelons are wildly popular with the cross-country team in the fall and late summer when they're growing. We'll harvest those, we'll chill them, and at the end of a really long, hot practice, we crack those open, and the kids love those. But the sixth graders are growing produce that will be served in our commercial kitchens for our kids. And we're working with our food service provider to take it from our farm to school, and the kids get to eat what they help grow.
And I know a lot of the sixth graders are heavily involved with this, but what's the plan for the future, and will it be incorporated in some of the other grades?
Well, we've had a number of other teachers who are very interested in this. Some have their own garden plot here that's for personal use. Some eat the food that we grow here. They enjoy that. But beyond that, we're really hoping to see it go all the way down to our pre-K level. We've got little mini gardens that we planted in some of the other schools where they understand seed germination and those things. But our sort of pie in the sky dream is to develop a new charter school that will be a STEM-based agriculture academy, where we can raise up the next generation of food scientists and food providers, food safety folk, those that can use technology like satellites and robotics to produce food. And we really think that there are jobs, vocations, careers that fit very nicely with what we're doing with our kids here. So maybe one of these days we'll have an academy where it focuses all of the learning around the agricultural aspects.
This is really exciting that the next generation has this opportunity to learn these sort of things in their classroom. One of the people that is making this garden happen is Seth Stallings, and he is the garden manager out here for the Old School Farm. And Seth, can you tell me a little bit about what you do here and how you incorporated the kids?
Yeah, so our 6th grade students, there's about 205 of them. Last fall we had a program where they came out for roughly 8 weeks, and they each got a 2.5 by 5 foot bed that they got to plant. So we had one session where they applied soil amendments, compost, pulled weeds, just generally prep the soil. And then the next session where they got to seed and just kind of learn about, each session has a curriculum component attached to it. So the first one would be, you know, the importance of like soil minerals and how soil biology and chemistry work together to help us grow plants. And then the next one we learned about monocots and dicots, and they got to choose which varieties of plants to grow for their fall garden. And then we had a maintenance session where they came out and just kind of cleaned up and checked for insects and everything. And
so each week they get a lesson in how to maintain their garden, right, and the progression of that garden.
Right.
And you do some crop rotation now, right? Is that correct over here?
Yeah, we have about an acre here, and so I take, you know, between 1/4 and 1/2 of an acre each year, and it gets summer and winter cover crops to build fertility, and, you know, legumes for nitrogen fixation and weed suppression and that sort of thing. So just try to do good crop rotation as best we can, and you know, mitigate disease pressure and all that sort of thing.
And I think one of the neat things that you had mentioned earlier is how the 6th graders will plant a garden now for next year's class.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously 6th graders will become 7th graders. So this in the spring, because of testing and stuff, we don't have as much time to really work with them. So they'll come out and help me plant all the summer crops, and that they won't get to harvest as 7th graders, but the new 6th graders coming on will get to harvest the last year's work and then begin their own garden and then plant for the next crop of 6th graders.
So they're really learning a life lesson in that, how to give back to the others so that they can continue to learn.
Correct.
Very nice. Well, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cece Leonard, you are a master gardener in Oklahoma County, and one of the big things that is happening here at Santa Fe South 6th Grade Learning Center is the Junior Master Gardener curriculum.
That is correct.
And you are the chair for that committee at Oklahoma County Extension. Can you tell me how you're incorporating that here in the school?
We came up with a curricula that we introduce to the kids. They come out here and they do the gardening, but ahead of the gardening we have a brief lesson for them. And that lesson can be anything from seeds to soil to pollinators, nutrition, and then we try to incorporate it with whatever the activity is for that particular session. So when the activity was soil preparation, then the lesson was soil itself, you know, how to, you know, what is soil, what makes a good soil, what is good nutrition, and we had a soil test that we showed them, and then how we fertilized based on the results of the soil test.
Okay, yes. So not only are they learning about soil, but they're also learning about plants and where their food comes from.
That's exactly right.
Can you explain some of the process of planting and what they're learning as they go through that?
We teach them how to read a seed packet, and then how the instructions for planting, and that all seeds are planted differently, some seeds at different depths and some seeds at different spacing. We taught them about culling. So if they planted seeds too densely, then they would have to cull the seeds to a certain density and a certain distance between seeds. We taught them about weeds and why you don't want weeds, because they take away the nutrition from the plants. And then we taught them nutrition and why they need to eat fresh fruits and vegetables, and why that's good for them, and what they get from that. They get good health.
Are they enjoying eating some of the fruits of their labor?
Some, yeah. Yeah, some of it they would taste like good troopers, and they would not like. So,
they gave it a try.
They did give it a try, yes.
Well, what are some of the other things that they're learning about? Not just plant science, but also you mentioned some leadership skills.
One of the things that was beautiful to me was the teamwork that they learned, because if some of the children did not quite understand the instructions, then other children would explain it to them and then help them. If some of the kids arrived late and so they didn't get a chance to help weed their garden, then other kids would come and help them weed their garden. And they would even save seeds for some of the kids that didn't get a chance to come out here. And there was one child that was, she was in a wheelchair, and so other children would help her because she couldn't quite reach the flower beds. And that was actually beautiful to see.
And you said there's about 27 people in your committee, and
There are.
so it takes quite a few people to really share this education.
Yeah.
But you're doing this in schools all over.
We are. We're in 4
Oklahoma
schools this spring.
That's excellent.
Yeah,
And this
yeah.
Junior Master Gardener curriculum is available for other people as well, or they can go to their local county extension office to get more information?
They can go to the local county extension office. They can look at it on the web. It was a program developed by Texas A&M University, and it is available for anybody, you know, in 4-H programs or county extensions to use.
And it really hits on some of those target areas that a lot of schools
Yes.
are trying to teach,
Yes.
not just plant science, but
Not
English,
just plant science,
writing,
yes.
science.
Math, leadership, yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining
Okay.
us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Today I'm making barley, peas, and corn. Now this is using a grain that many of us use in soup but don't use it a lot of other places. So we're actually going to use it and turn it into a side dish with some added benefits of some other vegetables as well. So I'm going to start with a tablespoon of vegetable oil of your choice. And then when it's on a medium-high heat, and to that I'm going to add about a half a cup of chopped onion. And this is going to have to pretty much just sit there. You don't have to stir it a lot, but spread it out over the pan so that it's making as much contact as possible. Come and check on it. It's going to take about 4 minutes. You want it soft, but not brown, so keep an eye on it. Once that gets done, we're going to add some garlic. We're going to add some barley. So let's talk about the barley while that's working. First of all, barley is not a whole grain. And almost all the barley that you buy in the supermarket is something called pearled, which is why it's not a whole grain, because it is rubbed or polished to take off the bran, so that it's all going to come out something like this when it's done. It's a much lighter color, and the lighter color it is down to the truly pearled barley is going to have the least fiber to it. Now the nice thing about barley, however, is that unlike most of our other grains where the fiber is mostly in the bran, it's throughout the grain here. So we can take the bran off and still end up with a lot of fiber here. Now the other thing that most of the barley that we buy in the supermarket is, if you get pearled barley itself, it's in little beads that look somewhat like pearls, often very white because it's been polished a lot. And that is going to be something that is going to take a long time to cook. So what most of us do is we buy something called quick barley. It's also pearled, and if you look at the label carefully, you'll find the word pearled in there too, although a lot of times we just call it quick barley. And it's got the same process of polishing it, but then they take it and they run it through some rollers to flatten it down, and that crushing spreads it out, increases the surface area, and allows you to cook it in a much shorter time. So it can cook in 10 to 15 minutes instead of the much longer 40 minutes or so or longer that it would take for actual pearled barley to do. This hasn't quite been a full 4 minutes, but I'm going to go ahead and add some ingredients here to it. I'm going to add the garlic, and this you want to have just a moment or so with the oil, maybe 30 seconds, to start releasing some of the flavors there. And once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and add the barley itself. Now that was 2 cloves of garlic that were minced, and this is 3/4 of a cup of quick barley. I'm going to add that to it. The thing I want to have happen here is I want the barley itself to get a little bit of toastiness to it. So we're going to let that sit for about a minute, stir it in with the oil, make sure that it's all coated so that it actually can start to toast. And again, I want to make full contact with the bottom of the pan. This is just a large saucepan that you're going to need, probably better than a skillet in this case, because we are going to add some liquid to it. It's sort of like cooking rice, but we're going to leave it a little bit soupier. All right, to that, I'm going to add 2 cups of a low sodium broth, either chicken broth or vegetable broth. And most of that is going to get absorbed as it cooks. Also going to add a teaspoon of Italian seasoning, a 1/4 of a teaspoon of ground black pepper, and this is the one that's going to really make it set off. This is a 1/8 of a teaspoon, excuse me, of ground turmeric, which we use a lot in pickling but don't use so much in the rest of our cooking, and it adds a gorgeous golden color to it. It can also add a golden color to your utensils and your pans if they have a white lining, and your clothing if you're not careful with it. It also has a nice flavor to it as well. So it adds some of the color that a dry mustard might, but doesn't add that kind of flavor. It adds its own. So this is going to come up to a boil. We're going to reduce the heat and then let it simmer for about 15 minutes. Okay, this looks great. You can see that it's gotten that golden color, and the barley itself has swelled up a lot. Also going to add to this at this point, we're going to cook it about 5 minutes more. I've got a half a cup of peas. Now, if you're in springtime and you've got fresh peas, that would be awesome. Frozen peas work really well as they do in most cases when you're working with peas because they freeze so well. And alternatively, if it was a little later in the summer, if you have fresh corn, that could be used here. We've got about half a cup of each of those going in, either frozen or fresh. And then we're going to let it cook just long enough to cook that through, probably another 4 to 5 minutes. And then we'll pretty much be done. Again, put the cover on it, recover. It should have been covered the first time when you were cooking for 15 minutes too. Okay, the great unveiling. As you can see, it's still got some soupiness to it, and that's appropriate for this. If you have leftovers, more of that's going to get absorbed into it, but this is perfect for the way it is for serving it right now. A couple more ingredients. I'm going to stir in about a tablespoon of fresh lemon juice and just stir that together to make sure it's all mixed all the way through. And that's pretty much it. The other ingredient is optional. To that, or with that, I'm going to serve it up. This actually makes about 4 servings. And I like serving it in a plate as well as a bowl. If you're serving it with other things, it can kind of flavor some of those other things, and I like flavors running together. A lot of times kids in particular aren't particularly fond of it, but I like it that way. And then a little bit of shredded Parmesan cheese over the top. And that's all there is to this one. It is absolutely terrific. I hope you'll give it a try. It's barley, peas, and corn. For Oklahoma Gardening, I'm Barbara Brown.
Today I brought some examples of preserved plants, and I thought I'd show you how to preserve some of your own. Now there's different uses for pressed plants and preserved plants. Like here's a good example of poison ivy, which I show when I go places so that kids learn the difference between poison ivy and Virginia creeper. And today we're going to press some Virginia creeper so I can show a comparison. Notice it has 5 leaves, not 3. So all you really need to press plants is paper to absorb the water, and pressure to keep it flat. So you could use, if you want to, just a dictionary. Just put the plant right in there and press it. You want the pages to be bigger than the plant. So this is not what we're going to press the Virginia creeper in. I took some pegboard because it has holes, which allows for ventilation, because you need to have good ventilation for the plant to dry. And I got some Velcro straps to add the pressure and keep it together. But basically all you need, you can use blotter paper or drying paper, which you can buy for this purpose. Or if you want to, you can even use newspaper. And you just layer some stuff to dry with, whether it's newspaper or blotting paper. And every once in a while you stick in some corrugated cardboard. So that way the air can flow as close as possible to the plants while the plants are being pressed to dry. So I'm going to put the Virginia creeper in here. And you just want to kind of arrange it so that when it lays flat, it won't be just a mess. And sometimes you got to pull some off. You just kind of spread it out so they all have their own space. Just kind of lay it on there, making sure it's flat. When you got it on there like you like it, then you can put everything back together and you can Velcro it shut. Now, if it's something that's really moist, you might have to undo this every day or two and take out like the soggy newspaper, or if the blotting paper gets soggy, just take that out and put it between some fresh sheets. And you don't have to do big things, you can do little things too. And you don't have to spend a lot of money trying to find Velcro straps. You can use, if it's a small press, you can use a rubber band. You can use a hair tie. You don't have to use anything big and fancy. This is just a little like 5x7. And if you want to, when you press something, you can write down what it is and date it, but it doesn't have to be expensive.
There are lots of great horticultural events this time of year. Be sure and consider these activities when you're making your plans for the weeks ahead. Next week, we travel to Southwood Landscape and Garden Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma to visit with gardening guy Paul James about some great plants for soggy locations. And we will unbox and install sprayer and drip irrigation kits in our raised beds. So join us then for more TV You'll Grow to Love. To find out more information about show topics, as well as recipes, videos, articles, fact sheets, and other resources, including a directory of local extension offices, be sure and visit our website, oklahomagardening.okstate.edu. And we always have great information, answers to questions, photos, and gardening discussions on your favorite social media as well. Join in on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find this entire show and other recent shows, as well as individual segments on our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. And tune in to our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel to watch segments from previous hosts. Oklahoma Gardening is produced by the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service as part of the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Oklahoma State University. The Botanic Garden at OSU is home to our studio gardens, and we encourage you to come visit this beautiful Stillwater jewel. We wish to thank our generous underwriters, TLC Garden Centers, Southwood Landscape and Garden Center, and the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry. Additional support is provided by Pond Pro Shops, Greenleaf Nursery and the Garden Debut Plants, and the Oklahoma Horticultural Society.